160's yard was a little bit understaffed today because 3 days ago we had two guys test on a manual transmission. One of them passed, the other one failed, and he had to retake his test today. And the two people that tested the following day on an automatic, well, both of them retested today too. If you're curious as to how the results went, the guy on the manual transmission, basically what he failed on 3 days ago was that he was pulling out of the Department of Driver Services, the DDS, and he clipped the curb right there as you were pulling out of the DDS. So he hit the curb right there, and that was the end of it. That you hit a curb and that's it. So he got to retest it today. He aced it. So he got his CDL today. Of the two people that were in the automatic that tested again today, one of them got it, the other guy didn't. And here's a lesson to be learned if you are taking your CDL training. When you are doing a backup through like the alley back, for example, and this is what caught him. He finally got the truck in there, but he hit the cones at the very back. There's 3 cones. He hit them and he went over the line. The lady whistled to have him pull back forward. He pulled forward and then went ahead and hit the highway horn, which means that you're done with your maneuver. Well, his trailer was a little bit crooked and part of it was inside the box. And the last like couple of inches of the other side of the trailer was outside the box. So he failed because of probably that much. So he's going to have to retest again. Come to learn now that 160 basically has a policy that allows you to retest on their equipment 3 times. After the 3rd time, if you can't pass it after 3 times, then they say, sorry, dude, you're on your own. You can rent a truck and redo it, or you could pay $1,200, something like that for a refresher course, in which case you get additional tries to get your license. But hopefully it won't ever come to that because each time you retest after the first one is another $150. So yeah, you don't want to do that. Just do well on the first time. Now I say that, I really hope that I don't botch something. I hope I do well. Now, they were a little understaffed. They have normally 5 instructors. Today they were down to 3 because 2 of them have to take the automatic and the manual transmission to the DDS. So there were 2 instructors down. So our groups were a little bit bigger today. There was the group of people that basically go for their tests next week. And so they were kind of working all together. There was the group of automatic people that basically are 1st and 2nd week students. And then there was the group of manual transmission group, which is my group, that was combined between the 1st and 2nd week students. Okay. Now, we were doing parallel today. And the move is almost exactly like offset, except that you, instead of going to about the middle of the landing gear, when you turn the wheel, you go to about, they say 3/4. I found that if you do it closer to 2/3 on the Peterbilt 579, it is probably going to line up pretty much the same way every single time. But if you crank the wheel all the way, you know how you start to move a little bit and the wheel goes a little bit more? If you don't let it go that little bit more, if you just hold it all the way in that position, start backing up as soon as you see about 2/3 of the landing gear, you stop, you turn the wheel all the way the other way until it stops, and you back off just like an inch, and then you back up again until it's straight. It will be practically completely in a perfect alignment, allowing you to see the 2 cones in the back and maybe about a foot over from there. So that is the way that I was doing it. The first time I did it where it was about 3/4 of the landing gear and I went way too deep. I saw like almost 3 cones back there. So I had to correct it a little bit on the straight, because you basically line up. You start from here and you line up. And I ended up being at like this angle as opposed to this angle. So as I started to straight back, I curved it a little bit to correct for that angle, and ended up getting it pretty lucky. And when I went to turn back and to position the trailer in and then put the tractor in, never hit any cones on any of the 4 times I got today. And because we had a bigger group, I only got to go, I think, 4 times. I think it was, I either went 2 or 3. I think I'm actually not, it may have been 5 or, no, it may have been 6 times. Let's see. It was 2 times in the morning. Then we broke for lunch. We came back and did it one more time. No, because then we changed over. We changed to the other side. And then I did it 3 more times. So I did it 5 times total today. Normally, between me and Thomas and Fritz, we're pretty quick and cycling through. We go like once every half an hour, if that. Today, because we were with the first week students, they took a little bit longer to learn the techniques. They're still learning it. We're all still learning it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not pretending like I know everything. Very much not. But I'm a little more proficient at it, a little bit more experience with it, a little more practice. So I felt more comfortable with it. Again, I know where the cones are. If I can see them, I say to myself, okay, I know that I'm 1 foot away from the cones here. I know where the cones are spaced. I know that if I'm this far from the front of the box, I know I'm approximately, 15 feet or whatever it is from the back of the box. And I can kind of judge accordingly. So when I'm trying to get it in there, I can figure that out. Never once hit a cone today on either side. I think out of all 5 times, I think I only did 3 pull-ups until I got in the box. So like I would start to get in an angle, and then I would say, nope, this isn't working out. And I'd have to pull up and correct. And I only did that 3 out of the 5 times. And the only other pull up I did was once I positioned it, I pulled forward in order to straighten it out. So that was it. I was in the box a little bit better. And, I feel pretty good about my execution of these maneuvers today. The big thing I need to work on is the alley back, I think. Straight back I pretty much got. I got a good understanding of it. Offset and the parallel I have a pretty good understanding of. The alley back is the one I need some help on, because that's one that you can't just follow a procedure. That's one you have to kind of feel. And Danny, a couple of days ago, he showed me his technique. I said 3 days ago. He showed me his technique of it, which I just started to implement when we ran out of time. So I'm hoping that tomorrow, because we will have all 5 instructors again, and 2 of them aren't disappearing to go to the DDS, I'm hoping that we can split into smaller groups, and we can really go through that, and split into the first week, automatic and manual, second week, automatic and manual, and then the third week, people, and let them go. What else happened today? Oh yeah, because it was like, we would go like, I think there was 7 people in our group. Yes, no, 6 people in our group. And so it took a little while for us to get through everybody. So we only really went once every hour, maybe a little bit more. So one of the things they did is when Mark came back from the DDS, he started pulling people aside to do different things. So he pulled Thomas aside and he did the in-cab, which he was making up. Then he pulled me aside to do the Section A, which I was expecting, Section A today. And but they told us at the beginning of the day, we're not gonna worry. We're just gonna you're not gonna worry about the pre-trip or anything like that. We're just gonna jump straight into it. And it's like, oh, okay. So I was thinking that maybe we wouldn't be doing it until tomorrow. And then when Mark got back, he went to evaluate us. Now, again, I like Mark because he is a stickler. He's a very smart man. He knows his trucks. He is a stickler on the details, on the pre-trip. Now, some people might be intimidated by that. I'm not, because this is not my final DDS test. If he worked for the DDS, holy crap, would it be bad? Because he would be expecting you to nail every single little bitty possible detail. And Lord help us all. But no, he's on our side. So he works at this school. And so if we get something wrong, he'll correct us. Like today when I went, I was going strong. I did everything, nailed it all. We had a part when I got to the inside sidewall, or the sidewall on the inside and the outside the sidewall and the top of the tire. We had a truck would by. It was extremely loud. So he asked me, as soon as I said, this completes the Section A portion of the pre-trip. He said, would you repeat the tire stuff again? I just want to make sure I got everything, because the loud truck went by. I said, sure. I repeated it, and he said, okay, good. There was only 2 things that were minor. he said, I'm gonna show you what they were, so that way you'll do them next time. I said, yes, please do. He took me over, and the water, it was the water pump. I pointed at the wrong thing. What I pointed at is the hoses that come out of the coolant reservoir, goes into the water pump. Where that goes in, it basically goes into the water pump, and it's like a little collection area, I guess it is. It goes in there, but then it kind of routes the water into the water pump. So I was pointing at that, and I should have pointed a little bit farther over to the right where the belt is, when I would say that it's belt driven, because that is the place right there that you care about. That's the actual pump itself. The other thing is where the coolant just goes in. So that was one thing. He said that's a minor thing because it's all part of the same kind of thing. So I'll give you that one. A couple other things was like he tweaked me a little bit. He was like, when I talk about the leaf spring hangers, for example, and I'm saying they're properly mounted and secured, don't just point at the metal thing. Point at each of the little lug nuts and make sure I drive home the point. This is where it's mounted and secured. And I was like, that's good. So now I'll know to, as I'm going through there, point out every little bitty thing, every point that it's mounted, every little point that it's secured, and I'll do that. The other thing I messed up was I accidentally called the lug nuts hubcaps. Because I was going to the hub seal next. And so I looked at it and said, nope, that's next. And so I was going through the lug nuts because I had done the inside and outside of the sidewalls. I did the top of the tire. I did the wheel. I did the valve stem and the metal cap. And then the next thing would be the 10 lug nuts. And then you end up on the hub seal. But I said 10 hubcaps. And he said, because it's funny at the end, he said, and what are those things right there? And I just kind of looked at him. I was like, what do you mean? He says, those 10 things right there, what are those? I'm like, lug nuts? He's like, yeah, you call them hubcaps. I'm like, I did? So it's one of those things where during showtime. Now, the end cab and the coupling are the only things you have to have 100%. And I got a high 90 because it was a couple little minor things. It was like I pointed in at the right machine, but the wrong part of it. Tweaking things like just to not, if I basically say something is mounted properly and secure, just point at that. I'll get that next time, and that's good. But tomorrow we're going to have section B. So when I'm doing the drive tires, the 2 axles back there, and I'm going to inspect those, I'm going to make a point to when I do the 10 lug nuts, I'm going to, because he has a good sense of humor. He's serious when he needs to be, but when I get to those, I'm going to look down and I'm going to say, now these 10 things right here, some people call hubcaps, they're actually called lug nuts. And he's going to smile and be like, he's going to be amused by that. Another thing I kind of was, I joked around a couple of times today with some people. We were just laughing and in a silly mood because all we were doing is sitting around watching people, especially the new people, practice parallel parking for the first time. So it took a little bit of time, a little bit of, learning. But so we started joking around. The pitman arm is just basically a piece of metal. It's a strong piece of metal that goes from the gearbox down to the drag link. And it's funny because we started just laughing and saying we should ask him where the pitman arm fluid is and where the drag link pump is and stuff like that, and just go over with a serious face and say, could you I'm trying to remember, and I don't know where it is on the Peterbilt. I remember Jason showed us on the he's one of the other instructors. I remember Jason showed us on the International, but on the Peterbilt, where is the drag link pump? And just with a serious face and have him be like, what are you talking about? And said, well, Jason showed us where the drag link pump was on the International. I'm like, what are you saying? Just see the look on their face. That'd be funny. And then Jason would be like, now what are you on about? Because he has a sense of humor too. Once he realizes, now the problem is, if we start messing with Jason, he's an instructor, so that would open a can of worms because he could instantly start messing with us. The box is 12 feet wide. The trailer is 8 feet wide. He could all of a sudden start sneaking in cones that are really close. And all of a sudden, the whole box is 9 feet wide. I mean, he could do things like that if he wanted to. I mean, it's funny because when Mark came back from the DDS, he was backing up a truck, and I was approaching because I was going to ask him how the guys did. And I thought about kicking a couple of cones underneath his truck and say, dude, what are you doing? But I wasn't going to mess with him, No, but they're good guys. If I had my Class A already and I went back, I might mess with them a little bit, but no need. I did find out about the automatic guys today, by the way. One of them passed his and got his, and I told you about the other guy that was a little bit crooked, and he had, like, by that much he failed. So he'll take it again. He'll take the maneuvers portion again, and he'll hopefully get it that time because he's a good guy. He overthinks things sometimes, probably. He might just overturn or oversteer or something. I don't know. He's never been in my group or anything. It's just I've worked with him. I worked with him, I think, one day, the first day I was there. And he was second week, and actually that was his third week because he tested earlier this week. So that was his third week. He was the beginning of his third week. So no, he's a good guy. He's a good guy. And I hope he finally gets it. The guy that was the stick shift guy that got his today, when I saw him pull up there, I walked over to the truck, and as he was getting out, I said, how'd it go? And he originally had me like drop my mouth because he said, oh, it's BS, man. And I was like, what? Because he's a good guy. He's very smart. He knows his stuff. He's a good driver. I mean, and I just I looked at him. He says, yeah, he says, oh, it's BS, man. I don't have to go there anymore. And I was like, oh, okay. I was like, well, good job, man. And that was that. So anyway, one of the things that I thought was kind of neat is I've been a teacher of different types of crafts, but definitely not trucking, but different crafts that I've been involved in, different things since probably the 90s. I've been teaching people things. And one of the things I excel at is breaking things down. I can also listen to things from various different sources, filter out the stuff that's not as effective, and basically concentrate on and tweak the things that are effective. And at the very end of the day, the very last girl that was going, she spent the last 10 minutes of class. She took probably about 20 minutes to do her maneuver. So I'd already checked out, and I was walking back to the car, and I saw her. She had sunglasses on, but her mouth was like, well, this is not a natural look. And if you do something like that, it indicates that you're trying to stiffen up your mouth to keep from expressing something. And she was wearing sunglasses, and I could tell she was pretty upset. So I said, I addressed her by name, and I said, how you doing over there? And she just said, fine, and walked on past. And so I called her name, and she stopped and turned around and looked at me. And I walked back over to her, and I said, so how'd it go on your last up? I didn't get a chance to see. I went ahead and got signed out. And she said, I just can't back up straight. I can't do it. I don't know what I'm not doing. I don't know what I need to be doing. And one of the instructors a few days ago, I think it was Jason, told us something that made it very easy. And so what I did is I basically just repackaged that over to her. I said, let me show, and I did it with visuals. So I said, let me show you something here. So we walked over the International, and I said, this is like your first day working on the Peterbilt that, she's been on the International date, short sleeper cab. And so I said, that's a totally different feel from the Peterbilt. So, and it doesn't turn nearly as fast. So it's also the mirrors are different in width. So I said, walk over here for a second. Let me show you. And I kind of positioned her on the side, looking down the trailer. And I said, you see how much of the trailer you could see? And it is basically like this angle where you could just barely see a little bit of the trailer. And I said, do you see how much of the trailer you see there? And she said, yeah. And I said, let's step over here. So I stepped over to the other side where you saw just about that much of that side of the trailer. And I said, you see how much you see there? It's even, right? That same amount on both sides. And she said, yeah. I said, as you're backing up, keep glancing at your mirrors back and forth, like literally just look at it as soon as you identify what you're looking at, and you can see both sides of the trailer. If you can see both sides, you're backing up straight. If you start to lose one of them because the trailer is basically like this, you see it like this, but as it starts to go like this, you lose this one. You can't see that side anymore. So I said, steer a little, just tilt the steering wheel towards it. And you'll find that if you turn towards it, it will come back to you. Just like if you're going forward, you steer towards something you want to come towards you. And I said, and so all you do is when you lose that side, you just steer towards it a little bit, and it'll come right back in. And if you're looking back and forth like this, at this kind of a pace, as you're glancing back and forth at your mirrors, you're going to see that the trailer is going to be doing this number. It's going to be more or less going straight down the way. Now, what I've kind of gotten the ability to do is just watch one side of the trailer if I want to, and kind of look at that, and then I'll kind of glance over the other side too, and I can watch either side of the trailer for a couple of seconds and see where I'm going, and kind of I've learned to kind of detect how far away how I'm going straight just by looking at one side and not without checking back and forth instantly, like, that side, that side, that side, that side. I can kind of watch this side for a moment, and then I'll check this mirror, and then I'll watch that one for a moment. I'll go back and forth. So I feel a little more proficient about the straight back that way. Showed her that, or at least I told her that. And I said, so tomorrow, just steer towards what you want to see. And, if you want to see that side again, steer a little bit towards it. As I say, if you turn, the faster you turn, the quicker it's going to come, and then you're going to overshoot it. So just do a little steering when you're going backwards. A little goes a long way. And she's like, oh, okay. And just wording it that way, she hadn't heard it worded that way. And that was the way that it helped me. So when I told her that, she kind of thought about it and was like, that makes a lot of sense. I'm like, well, I'm repackaging information that I got from the instructors. So hopefully that helps you like it did me. And she's like, yeah, it does. Thanks. And she was able to feel better. So that's one of the things that's kind of interesting is we're all very, very positive in the way we speak and interact with each other. We're very, excited for each other's success. We're not in competition. We're all working together to try and supporting each other in our individual abilities as we're trying to get these Class A licenses. So it's not like, I'm trying to compete for a better score, because if I have 12 points for my 3 maneuvers and I run all the way out and I have 1 point left or 0 points left, and or whatever the lowest number is, and if you run out and if you do anything else more wrong, you will fail. And then someone else doesn't miss a beat and gets every possible thing correct without missing any points. If they do that well and I do this well, guess what? We're still getting a Class A, and they don't pay you back. They don't give you any special certification or special, treatment. You don't get an additional endorsement or anything like that simply because you scored higher. It's just like that. What they say about doctors. What do you call the person that graduates bottom of their class in medical school? Doctor. Still a doctor, just like the top of the class. You can't say, well, I was, you could say you're top in your class at such and such medical school. Sure. But you're not like, I'm a top doctor. You can't say that. You're just a doctor. So no, we're all very, very supportive. And some of the things that I'm good at retaining information and regurgitating it and packaging it sometimes in ways that helps other people. And that's something that I felt good about, is being able to share some of this stuff, because I'm also not afraid to ask questions. A lot of the people that are there are younger people. They're in their 20s, sometimes like early 20s. There's one guy in his who's 19, but a lot of the people in their early 20s, and they don't necessarily like to ask questions. They'll wait and get answers when they're presented or offered. But it's like, I'm not afraid to ask questions. I'm a Gen Xer, man. I would rather get something right, and I can deal with it if I don't feel bad for not knowing something. I'm not afraid to say, can you show me? I don't understand this. Can you show it to me? Or can you answer a question for me? I'm not afraid to ask that. Some people are. But to me, when you ask something, then you know the answer, as opposed to me saying, oh yeah, I'm going to try to figure this out because I'm a smart person. I can figure this out by myself. That's when you're going to mess up. So I'm not afraid to ask the questions. Some of the younger people, I think, are, And they'll get frustrated because they don't know, they don't feel like they can ask the questions, or they just don't think of the questions, or they have frustrations. There was one guy that was really irritated earlier today. And he was just like, I don't understand this and I don't understand that. And I was like, well, have you asked him about that? Have you asked him about it? He says, no, I haven't. I said, well, ask them the questions. They're here to teach us. Ask those teachers the questions. One of the people that was in the class today, she was frustrated because she was not able to get the gears to go in. She was sitting there quietly, and then says, I'm thinking about going automatic. And I look over and I say, well, of course that's your decision. I mean, it's your choice. But what's your main hang up here? What's your concern? Why are you suddenly saying that? And she said, I can't get this shifting to work. And I said, are you used to driving a stick? And she says, yeah, I know how to drive a stick. And I'm like, okay, you know how when you drive a stick, you have a synchronized gearbox. You press the clutch all the way in and you make your shift. And she said, yeah. I said, it doesn't work that way on a truck. If you press all the way down, it's a clutch brake. You're supposed to back off on it like 2 or 3, 3 inches or so, 3 or 4 inches. And then it goes right in there. It has just the clutch. You just release the clutch and the gear goes right in. And she just kind of looked at me weird and said, so don't even push the clutch all the way. I said, it doesn't work that way on a truck. I said, you don't need to push it in. If you push it all the way in, it wears it down or something like that is what they told us, is it wears it down quicker. So you just push down the clutch just a little bit to engage it, and then you shift. And you'll notice that as soon as you do that, it will just slip right in gear. Next gear, next gear, next gear. And she's like, all right, I'll try it. She did. And then she came back and she wasn't jerking the crap out of the trailer anymore, because it would be one of those things. The truck is all of a sudden, it's stationary, and all of a sudden it's like, shaking all over the place. It's hilarious to watch. And you're like, oh, well, they clearly had their foot on the brake, and they were releasing the clutch, and the thing's trying to push against the thing and freaking out, but it's unable to. And after that, she had a big old grin on her face. She's like, yeah, I mean, I wish they would have told us that. And I'm like, well, they might have. It's just, they give you all the information. They give you a lot of information. And sometimes it's when you ask something, like I think I asked, why isn't this thing shifting right? And he says, well, back off on the clutch a little bit, because when it's all the way in, it's a clutch brake. And they kind of explained it. And I was like, oh, okay. So again, repackaging it and passing it on, because that's what it's about. And it's funny because I'm older, I'm in my mid-40s, late mid-40s. People are somehow, I don't want to say that like they're looking at me like an authority, but they'll ask me questions. And it might just be that they know that I'm patient enough to ask the questions. If I don't know something, I'm like, let me find out, because that's a really good question. And then they don't feel intimidated like a teacher is going to judge them or something like that. I don't feel that way at all. I think that they're all there to help us out. And I feel like they're really doing a good job. But it's interesting because they each will teach the things procedurally the same way, but they'll also be good about sharing. This is a little trick that I like that works well for me too. This is a tweak that works for me. This is where I will line it up. This is where I'll do things. And they'll add little things like that to tweak things. And they'll say, here's the procedure. This is what you do. I also find that it helps when I do this. And that's really helpful. And depending on the instructors you work with, they'll tell you their tweaks, especially if you ask, and then you'll learn the tweaks. And it may be that Orlando tells you one thing and it's like, that's what clicks with me. And then you're doing a different technique and you work with Orlando and he doesn't tell you something that's going to help that click, but then you work with Jason and Jason says something that makes it click. And it's like, there it goes. Now I get it. And then the next day I'll work with Jason and nothing he says is helping me click on something I'm really struggling with, but I work with Mark and all of a sudden, there it is. There it is. Mark just said something now. And so that's one of the cool things, is that every instructor brings little tricks of the trade and things that help them. And they'll bring that to us along with the tried and true procedures and stuff. So that's really cool. I like the instructors and I like that. And if I'm honest, I also I'm very outgoing. I like being able to help people. One thing that I've also been as instructor, as an instructor, I've also been very motivational and very supportive of people because I like people to succeed. I like people to do better. And sometimes I find that it's just a little encouragement in the right time when someone needs it. And that really helps someone get through something like that. So I've done it a couple of times with a few people, and it's good. It's good. It gives good vibes. When people are having a hard time and they're struggling to think of something and struggling to rationalize something, it can be very stressful on people. Me, I'm not afraid to ask questions, but some people it tears them apart. They'll get really angry. They'll sometimes get really sad. That just people that have different types of reactions. And so if there's anything I can do to help, I will. And so that's something that I really appreciate about being out there is the relationship. We'll all joke around and we'll laugh and we'll tell jokes and stuff. And one thing I've noticed out there, because a lot of the instructors are very Southern, I guess you could say here in Georgia, I'm in Atlanta, big city, and I don't really have an accent. If I'm speaking normally, I don't really have an accent. Like right now, I'm just talking like I normally do. I may talk fast, but I don't really have an accent. Now, when I get around the country people and I start talking to some of the instructors and they're all talking country and stuff, I will pull out the drawl. And I caught myself today with big eyes because I was like, I made up on the fly because we'll joke around, and I made up on the fly a joke or a little, quick reply. And I just realized it was the most country Southern sounding thing in the world. Basically, what we were talking about is the fact that one of the guys went first up, and then Danny realized that we had some people that had not done parallel before. So he says, "Oh, I didn't realize that you all hadn't done parallel before. So let me stop and we'll start over again, and we'll just break this down from the very beginning." He showed every little step to the new people. And that was really cool because, there was 4 new people and he just walked everybody through it very slowly. He said, first step is this. And then what we're going to do is we're going to back this up and we're going to align the truck right here. So let me do that now. Then he'd get in the truck and he'd back up and he'd say, okay, so now let's get out and let's look at the mirrors. Let's look at where this is and look at this thing. And he would break it all down every little step of the way. And so that took a little while, but, it's funny because when he got back in the truck after Fritz went, Fritz adjust the mirrors way down to look at the wheels. And Danny, in the middle of instructing, he said, and you'll look at your mirrors. Then he stopped and turned around and says, and you got to stop messing with the mirrors. Those mirrors were all over the place. Once they're set, you set them. Don't move them all over the place. And we all just kind of laugh because every one of us has gotten in the truck after somebody else and seen that the mirrors are way over to the side or looking way down because they're using them. And it's funny because I said, you're going to be having your hand on top of the steering wheel and you're going to be like sitting there with the mirror switch, and you're going to be doing a turn, tracking with the mirror over, following it. The thing's going to be looking farther inside. But the thing I said today that was overly Southern was, as we were, I got in the trailer and the mirror was it was angled so far down. I said, I was like, what you trying to look at with that mirror there? It looks like you're trying to check underneath your truck for leaks. But I said it in a very Southern way. And then as soon as I said it, I think my eyes got big. I was like, whoa, I just went all full Southern country on that one. And it flowed. Like right now, it was very forced when I just did it a moment ago because I was trying to remember the words that I used and stuff. But at the time, you slip into it. And that drawl came out and the Southern came out. And just, it was really funny because, just came out of nowhere too. It was ridiculous, but no, all's good. It's fun. It's a good group. It's a good group. I'm having fun. And today was hump day. Today was day 8 of 15 in the yard. So tomorrow I will do my section B pre-trip, and then hopefully we'll be doing the alley dock because that's the one I really need to tweak my performance of. And hopefully we'll be in smaller groups. So hopefully I'll get a lot of practice on the alley back and the alley dock. And And all will be well going into the weekend, because next week I would love nothing more than to spend all week tweaking things, figuring out the last little tweaks on the wording that I need for the pre-trip, just nailing the coupling again, and then actually getting the in-cab right, making sure that, because the only section at this point that I didn't do well on before was section B. And that was because I think that was the day that I completely forgot to do the brakes. I think of memory. I can't remember. But I think that was the day that as I was going through there, I skipped like so much of the stuff because I didn't even think about the frame. So I don't think I said the frame and the cross members. So I just completely glossed right over that. I think when it came down to the wheel, I went from suspension straight to the inside. I mean, I can't remember. I'd have to go back and rewatch my log from that day. But there was something I just totally missed that day. And I remember hearing, I was like, of course I messed that up, because I learned the script. I knew it. But the problem that I ran into is that when I learned it on the International, and I made a mental look. I made a mental list. And as I was going through my paperwork, I was like, okay, this is this, this is this, this is this, this is how it is. Then they moved us to the Peterbilt, and section A and section B under the hood and the back part of the trailer or the tractor messed me up because it was not a match. And I made a mental note and a mental association, so I messed that up. But I think I got it down now. I think I'm going to do okay on section B tomorrow. So in the meantime, I have to be up in 5 hours. So I'm going to go ahead and call it there. I know this episode was long. I apologize, but thanks for watching.